According to Google, the Pixel 8 Pro is a true flagship phone that is built for the generative AI era. That may be true in Google's eyes, but for the real-world users out there, what makes the Pixel 8 Pro so special? Has it brought anything new and exciting to the table that will push the boundaries of the smartphone landscape? In some ways, yes, and in other ways, no. Thankfully for you, I've been spending the past 6 days with the Pixel 8 Pro, which isn't a ton of time, but should be enough to give you the rundown on the most important aspects of this year's Pixel lineup. And without a doubt, the most important changes this year come with the new Tensor G3 chip. In the past, many people have had complaints about Google's semi-custom Tensor chips. Last year, the G2 chip was mostly fine for me personally, but there were many reports of overheating and uncomfortable temperatures when doing basic tasks. On paper, the Tensor G3 chip changes a lot this year, shipping with 9 CPU cores and built on a much more modern 4nm process. That should result in improved performance and thermals while also being the anchor for many new AI-related features. Performance-wise, I never had any issues with the Tensor G2 chip, and naturally, the G3 has been fine in my usage. Regular day-to-day performance has been great, whether it's system animation, social media, gaming, or maps navigation. I've played hours of Call of Duty Mobile at 120 FPS on max brightness with LTE, recorded 2 hours straight of 4K 60 FPS video, and played around with the wealth of new AI features without a hitch. So, in my limited testing, I feel as if the G3 is a massive improvement. Of course, those intensive tasks did cause the device to get warm as it would with any other device out there, but in my testing, there has been no overheating or unexpected raises in temperature. I would say I am cautiously optimistic that this will remain true throughout the year. In the meantime, keep an eye on the channel for a more long-term analysis when that's ready. The camera is another major change that we should be looking at, since every single lens got an upgrade in both hardware and software. As a refresher, the Pixel 8 Pro comes with a 50 megapixel main lens, a 48 megapixel telephoto, and a 48 megapixel ultra-wide, which is a huge upgrade from last year's 12 megapixel ultra-wide sensor. Not to mention, all 3 lenses now have lower apertures, so the main sensor went from f1.9 to f1.7, the telephoto lens went from f3.5 to 2.8, and the ultra-wide went from f2.2 to f1.9. Basically, in layman's terms, this means photos will be sharper, brighter, and less noisy while being especially noticeable in low light. Not to mention, we got a handful of software-related features as well. For starters, Pro controls are finally a thing with the Pixel 8 Pro, where you can manually control the settings for focus, ISO, shutter speed, and more. Audio Magic Eraser is a pretty sweet feature as well that uses AI to identify and isolate noises inside a video. When in use, the editor will give you options on what it can hear. From there, you can turn down the volume or completely mute certain noises. For a quick example, I'll show you how well it removed wind noises from this video that I shot at the pier a couple months ago. In that example, it completely removed the wind noises so that the video was somewhat usable from an audio perspective. I think it's worth doing more testing, but overall, this is a solid addition. I would have to say though, my #1 favorite feature is Magic Editor. This is another new feature this year, and it's basically a simplified, built-in version of Photoshop with some AI generation sprinkled in. You can access this feature through Google Photos, hit edit, and you are immediately given AI-generated suggestions on how to make the photo better, like photo unblur to sharpen an image, enhance, which seems to brighten up the shot, or a new concept to the Pixel series, which is the ability to literally move objects around within the editor, and AI will generate shadows or replacement backgrounds around the subject. Sometimes this doesn't work 100% perfectly, like maybe the edges are off or the shadows don't align in the right place, whereas with other photos you can't even tell that it was edited using Magic Editor. It works with any photo in your Google Photos library, and personally, I love how clean the interface is here. There are a few more camera features to discuss too, like Zoom Enhance, which is supposed to use AI to enhance zoomed in photos, or Video Boost, which is supposed to use AI to upscale video footage. But unfortunately, these are some of those dreaded coming soon features features, which is really unfortunate and borderline frustrating that consumers might be buying devices without all the marketed features included in. Ultimately, I would like to see Google start having these features ready for release instead of coming later, but as for the camera we have today, I am pretty happy overall. Display quality is another area that had some decent upgrades. Google calls this a Super Actua display on the 8 Pro, which really only means the displays are much brighter and fare well in direct sunlight. The 8 Pro maxes out at 2400 nits peak brightness, which is higher than the S23, the iPhone 15 Pro, or the OnePlus 11. It's super sharp at a resolution of 2992 by 1344, has HDR support, and is coated in Gorilla Glass Victus 2 for extra protection. In day-to-day use, I really don't have a single complaint about the display. 120Hz gaming is super smooth and satisfying to interact with, especially on a screen that can get bright as it does. General scrolling or social media usage is great, and watching YouTube videos in full screen, zoomed in a bit so that you can get rid of those black bars, is so immersive to watch content on. Long story short, the display is probably one of the most underrated, most impactful upgrades we've received this year. And with that said, I can comfortably say those are the biggest improvements to this year's Pixel 8 Pro, but there are many more we're going to talk about that you should at least be aware of. There aren't a ton of changes when it comes to the build of the 8 Pro, but the ones we do have, I think, matter a lot. At the request of many Pixel fans, Google has finally made the screen flat this year, so no more curves or accidental touches, no more worries about accessories fitting well like cases or screen protectors. And while I personally didn't have an issue with the curved glass, I can understand why people prefer a flat screen. It's definitely more of a function over form type deal, and I'm here for it. On top of that, Google listened to another highly requested change and used matte glass on the back of the Pro model, and personally, I can get behind this 100%. It felt awesome on the Pixel Fold, and naturally it feels great on the 8 Pro, with the biggest benefit being no more of those gross fingerprints like you see on glossy glass. Lastly, the biggest change you should notice on the 8 Pro is new rounded corners. It's a small difference that some might not even notice, but to me, I think it feels more comfortable in the hand while looking a bit more modern as well. Probably the only aspect I dislike about the build is the polished aluminum. It looks great, don't get me wrong, but in my experience, that polish finish scratches super easily, which is why I had to resort to a glass protector for my Pixel Fold's rear visor. Not a huge deal, but it is something that you should keep in mind. Software is another area the Pixel 8 Pro received some refinement. This year, we received the upgrade to Android 14, which I've covered ad nauseum, so I'll do it real quick. Overall, Android 14 is cleaner, should be more battery efficient, and brought a handful of customization features to the mix. Things like lock screen customization are finally here with a new assortment of new clock faces. We now have customizable lock screen shortcuts and a Material You facelift, if you will, that adds more color theming throughout the OS. On top of that, there are some Pixel 8 series features that should eventually make its way to the rest of the Pixel devices. Things like Google Assistant now having the ability to summarize web pages on your behalf. AI wallpapers is another one that can now be accessed in the customization section, where you can select from a group of prompts and style options to generate wallpapers based on that prompt. And of course, all the rest of the Pixel staples are here too, in all of its glory, like Magic Eraser, call screening, Now Playing, Live Translate, that all come together to make the Pixel experience feel one of a kind. Most importantly, Google announced that the Pixel 8 series would be getting 7 years of OS, security, and feature drops. I know there's been a lot of opinions on this, and all I can say is I'm curious to see how this plays out, although in theory, being able to use an updated, secure Android device until 2030 is a pretty big deal. If, for some crazy reason, I'm still making videos 7 years from now, I'll be happy to report on how it's held up during that time. And real quick, let's go over some last minute thoughts about the 8 Pro experience. Battery life, I'm personally still trying to figure it out, or at least trying to figure out how to maximize it. From what I know about Pixel devices, they are supposed to learn your habits over time and optimize accordingly. Sometimes it can take weeks for that process to play out, and because of that, it's still hard for me to give an opinion on the battery, especially after only 6 days. Right now, I'm using the 8 Pro very heavily for testing and research, so currently I find myself charging twice a day. I'm sure once the device learns my usage habits, it can easily last a full day though. Unfortunately, it's just far too early to tell. But the addition of real 30-watt fast charging makes a huge difference in my personal experience. It is so incredibly useful to get that low battery notification, pop it on the charger, wash the dishes, or take a shower just to come back with enough charge to actually get some real, meaningful work done. I just wish that Google would include a compatible charger in the box so that everyone can take advantage of that new speed increase. Before we get out of here, I did want to discuss some aspects that I disliked about the Pixel 8 Pro. For starters, we unfortunately did not get an upgrade to the fingerprint scanner. It's still the same sensor as last year, although Google did say they improved the display technology to allow for more accurate reads. To me, it still feels the exact same, and my Pixel 7 actively got worse as the year went on, so I hope this doesn't happen with the 8 Pro as well. Likewise, Face Unlock is another dislike of mine. In ideal circumstances, it works great, but still, in darker rooms, Face Unlock struggles, and in pitch black environments, Face Unlock won't even work period, which is beyond frustrating. The speakers are another weak point as well. They aren't particularly bad, but they sound pretty much identical to my Pixel 7 and doesn't get nearly as loud as I was expecting. Lastly, the base storage of 128 gigabytes is definitely not enough, especially if you plan on using this device for the full 7 years of support. In my case, downloading my social media apps and Call of Duty Mobile filled up my storage to less than half. So if you are considering using this device for a super long time, definitely get the higher tier version of storage. Can you believe that I filmed and edited this entire video without talking about the temperature sensor? I was just too busy trying to make sure I covered everything else. I completely forgot about it. So to get right into it real quick, the temperature sensor is definitely interesting, but unfortunately in my day-to-day use, I cannot find any real practical uses for it. I tried checking the temperature of many things like a hot kitchen pan, a candle, an ice cold beer, and yeah, I can confirm it works, and pretty quickly might I add, but in my 6 days of use, I can't pinpoint a single situation where it has truly made my life easier yet. I'm going to keep playing around with it to see if I can get some good use out of it, and personally, I really do want to find it useful, but for now, unsurprisingly, the thermometer is not a real good reason to buy an 8 Pro. At the end of the day, what we have here is a continuation of Google's growing formula with more camera upgrades, AI features, and great hardware additions like the new Super Actuate display or true, genuine fast charging. My outlook on the Pixel 8 series is overall positive at this time, and if Google can keep working at this pace, by the time they implement their fully custom chip in 2025, the Pixel software should be ready to take full advantage of it. As I said, this is just an early review. I plan to continue using the 8 Pro as my main device over the next month or so expect more videos covering new discoveries in the upcoming weeks. Leave a comment and let me know if there's anything that you want me to compare or cover in regards to the Pixel 8 Pro during my usage period. I will be reading every single comment, but in the meantime, guys, I'm getting out of here. This has been Jordan Floyd with 9to5 Google. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.